Hi there, if you're new, welcome to my channel. If you are returning, welcome back. I'm so grateful for you to be here either way. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like being in a healthy relationship, but also struggling with mental illness and mental health. I think a lot of times people think that if you do struggle with mental health or mental illness, that you're not capable of being in a healthy relationship, and that's what I thought for a long time. I've talked about this on my channel, but I've gotten quite a few different mental health diagnoses, and at this point in my mental health journey, I don't care about the diagnosis. I don't care about the label. I just know that I struggle with things and I'm trying to improve where I can. I know that I used to feel too broken for a healthy relationship. I used to feel like I was never going to be in a place where I could have a positive and healthy relationship, but I know now that that's not true, and I'm here to share some things that I've done and that my husband has done to help make sure that we do have a healthy relationship. I do also just want to say that it's not easy. No relationship is ever easy, especially when you add mental health to the mix, but it is 100% possible. All right, so jumping right into it, I feel like this one should be the first one that we talk about, and that is choosing the right partner. I used to go after people who were emotionally unavailable. I used to go after people who I had to save or heal, or people that I trauma bonded with. I used to go after people who we would have this instant, immediate connection where it felt like we were on fire, and I now know that that was kind of either a part of trauma bonding or it was a part of love bombing, and it just isn't healthy to go from 0 to 100 when you're getting to know someone. So those were kind of the people that I went after, and I think I was looking for something that felt real, and in that I was mistaking realness for intensity, and I was always ending up in these cycles with unhealthy people, and I was also unhealthy myself. So I think in a lot of ways, ending up in relationships with these people, it held me back and it actually made me regress on my mental health journey. I loved the chase. I loved the ups and downs. I think in some ways I was addicted to it. And I will say, being in a healthy relationship, it can feel boring at times, but I would not trade it for the world. I don't even think boring is the right word. I think stillness can be uncomfortable, especially people who have had trauma. And I struggle with stillness. It's something that I struggle with in every aspect of my life, whether it's at work or in my relationship. I just have a hard time being still and being content. And I've had to learn how to be still and how to be content. In any regard, I think the most important thing is choosing the right partner. My current partner, when we met, there was definitely an instant connection, but it wasn't intense. It wasn't 0 to 100%. It was a slow, intentional, gradual build. We gradually got to know one another. I did share early on my mental health and how I struggled, and he was very receptive and understanding, and he met what I shared with him with kindness and respect, and it felt different. It felt different than any of my other relationships, and when I first met him, I wanted to run. I felt like he was too good for me. I felt like I was going to sabotage it, but I didn't run, and I promised myself that I was going to do whatever I could to make sure that I was showing up the best way possible, and that's what I did. And now we're here and we're married and we have a great relationship, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Number two, I'm not going to say that this is a requirement, but it does make it a lot easier when your partner is healed or on their healing journey and that they don't have any open wounds. When I met my husband, he had been working on himself. He had healed from previous relationships and previous traumas, and he had had closure. It wasn't like when we met, he just got out of a relationship a couple weeks ago and, you know, he was still healing from that. Like, there was none of that. And I think that he was able to show up as his best self. And so when I was struggling, it wasn't like both of us were struggling equally. And I'm not saying, again, it's not a requirement. I understand that you can still have a healthy relationship if you both struggle with mental health, but it makes it so much more manageable when the other person is also on their own healing journey, and that they are working to heal and working to improve, and that they are aware of the things that they still need to heal and move past. It was just so refreshing to meet someone who didn't come with all of this unhealed baggage that I felt like I had to heal for them. So I was able to show up and focus on myself because I wasn't trying to heal him. We kind of both showed up and we were both on our own paths of healing, and we were able to focus on ourselves while also supporting one another. Number 3, we always hear this. I used to do this, but we can't expect our partners to be our therapists. And I know that's really hard because my husband is my best friend and I want to talk to him about everything. And I do, for the most part, talk to him about everything, but I frame it in a way where I'm not trauma dumping on him. So, for example, instead of going to him and saying, like, I'm a terrible person and I hate myself and all these negative things, and showing up in a crisis, I will normally give him some kind of warning and kind of gauge where he's at, because he may not always be in the headspace to have these conversations with me when I'm struggling. So instead, I'll just be like, hey, babe, like my brain is being really mean to me right now and I feel like I'm going to spiral. And I'm not trauma dumping on him. I'm not treating him like my therapist, but I am giving him a warning signal that I am going through something right now, and he can decide what he does with it. And we can kind of feel each other out and feel where we're at and meet each other where we're at, without me coming to him in a crisis and him feeling like he has to drop whatever he's doing to address the crisis that I'm in. I try to work on what I'm going through mentally, but also communicating that with him in a way that doesn't make him feel like he has to resolve my crisis. The 4th thing is that I don't use my mental illness as an excuse for the things that I do. There are times where I've been on new medications and they've made me extremely irritable, or I've just been irritable in general. And when I don't show up as my best self, I don't just blame it on the fact that it's my mental illness, even if it is a symptom of whatever I have going on. I don't say, well, I'm just like this because of my mental illness. I accept responsibility and I acknowledge that I didn't show up as my best self, and I apologize and I say, I'm so sorry that I was irritable today and you didn't deserve that. We have to recognize that when we do have mental illness, like, there is a lot going on in our brains and there's a lot going on under the surface, but we're still impacting other people with our decisions and the way that we're showing up. And their truth is still valid, just like my truth is still valid. Just like my truth of struggling with irritability because I'm in fight or flight mode, just like that is my truth. The truth also is that I can hurt my husband's feelings if I'm irritable and snap and say something that's not very nice. So both truths can exist, and we do have to accept responsibility for the ways that we impact others, and we have to try to make it right when we do make mistakes along the way. Number 5, I think this is one of my favorite things that we are good at and that we do, but I ask him for feedback and he also gives me feedback. In the few years that we've been together, I have improved so much. I mean, I could cry at the person that I am today versus the person I was 5 years ago. And there's so many different facets of me that have healed and that has improved. And he gives me feedback, not just negative feedback, but positive feedback too. I mean, he's come up to me before and been like, I'm so proud of you for how much you've grown and how much you've improved. And I'm so proud of you that you didn't react the same way you would have reacted a couple years ago. And that positive feedback is so encouraging, and I appreciate that in him so much. And also, like, I take the negative feedback too. So when I might make a mistake or I might say something that's hurtful, he tells me in a kind and loving way. He might say, that hurt my feelings and I really didn't appreciate being talked to that way, and I wouldn't talk to you that way. And that's when we have a conversation about it. I take the criticism and feedback, even if it hurts. Sometimes it's made me feel worse about myself, and sometimes I can spiral because I'm like, oh, I made this one mistake and he's not going to love me anymore, and this is it. And I can kind of spiral really quickly, but I have to recognize that he's telling me this because we're on the same team and he wants to see me improve and he wants this relationship to be healthy, and that's why he's giving me this feedback. We have to be able to take feedback on, again, how we impact others. And him and I are really good about that. Sometimes I can get defensive, but if I start to get defensive, we decide to leave the conversation alone and we come back to it when I'm in a better headspace and able to take the criticism and feedback a little bit better. I just can't iterate enough how much this ongoing feedback has helped our relationship, and it's just gotten us so much closer together, because it's like we're in this together and we're rooting each other on, and we're willing to tell each other the hard things kindly and in a loving way. If we didn't give each other feedback, it would build resentment. And then, you know how resentment is, it's very quiet, it's very sneaky, and it just snaps one day. So giving each other feedback allows us to get our feelings out, it allows us to be heard, it allows us to see how we're impacting the other person, and it, I think, acts as a safeguard against any resentment that could possibly start building against one another. The sixth thing, I think that this kind of goes along with some of the other points that I mentioned, but I communicate as often and as much as I can. So if I wake up and I can just feel that I'm on edge that day, or I'm just not in a good headspace, I will let him know that, and I will just say, hey, like, I don't feel good today. I think that that signals to him that might not be a day where I'm open to criticism or feedback. It signals to him how he can show up and what he can do to show up on the days that I'm not my best self. Another thing that I've done in communicating early and often is I've said, before I've let myself get to a place that's unhealthy, like before I've let myself spiral, I will say something like, hey babe, I'm having really irrational thoughts right now, and I know they're irrational. And by doing that and by communicating early, we're able to talk about whatever's bothering me before it gets to a point where I feel like it's out of control. Because we're able to communicate so well, it's just prevented so many things from going way further than they had to. And then the last one I would say is I communicate with him on my progress and what I'm learning in therapy and where I'm at on my journey. So this one I would say is different from the last point because, you know, I am going to therapy and I'm trying to learn how to get better and do better. So I will tell him how my therapy appointments went, and I will tell him what my therapist said and what I'm working on that week, and he can ask questions. Like I said, he can give me feedback, and he can also kind of follow along my journey with me. It's really good to share like what I'm learning in therapy or even what I've learned in my own research. I know recently one of my therapists recommended a book to me, and I started listening to it and it resonated so much. So I would go to him and I would say like, hey, this is what the book said, and this is how the book said people show up with this mental illness, and this is what the book said helps. And I've just shared as much of my journey and as much as what I've learned along the way. I've shared that with him so he also has the same knowledge. I think sometimes we've expected our partners or our loved ones to do the research themselves on these kinds of things, but I think if they don't experience it, it's hard to know what to research. And so by me sharing what I'm learning in therapy and by me sharing what I'm learning with all of these other resources, I can choose what's relevant to me and I can choose what kind of knowledge I'm sharing with him. And then it results in a conversation about it, and it's just a way for us to bond and have some quality time together too. So it's kind of like a win-win. And then by me teaching him, I don't know if you've heard this before, but when we teach other people things, we tend to remember it a lot better. So by me going to him and teaching him what I'm learning, it's kind of engraving the things that I'm learning in my brain a little bit more. As someone who was in toxic and unhealthy relationships for most of my 20s, I'm here to tell you it's possible. It is an uphill battle. It is a choice that I have to make every day, that I want to improve and then I want to get better, and then I want to feel better. You won't sabotage it if you're actively working on getting better and you have a partner by your side who is supportive and receptive to the things that I've shared with you today. And because I've continued to work on improving and I have gotten so much better, it's kind of built confidence in me, and it's kind of helped my self-esteem and my self-worth as I show up in this relationship. And as I've built my confidence, I've felt more secure in my relationship with him. And that is another thing I can't stress enough, because when I see that I'm getting better, it makes me feel better as to how I'm showing up in this relationship. It is possible to live a calm, peaceful life. Again, if you're like me, you have to work on being content. You have to work on being peaceful and getting rid of that addiction to the ups and downs. You have to heal yourself while or before you go into a relationship like this, and you have to recognize the things that you struggle with. So it does take a lot of self-awareness. It's not an easy road, but it's worth it when you find someone who loves you unconditionally. And this love in this relationship is nothing like I've ever experienced in my life before. And I am healing every single day because of how he shows up. And I'm also doing the work on my side too. I'm beyond grateful that this is where I'm at today. And I'm grateful that I can share this with you, and I hope it helps someone. And if you're out there and you're listening, you deserve a healthy relationship too, and I hope that one day you can preach about it and share what you've learned. With that being said, thanks for hanging with me. Again, I'm grateful that you're here, and until next time, bye.